Hello, guys. It is Monday and I'm recording. This happens often for me. I had another topic planned, but something came up and I was like, oh, I want to do that. And so here I am. We today are going to be talking about, if you haven't already read the title, when you're wishing things were different. And the example that I have is a bit more lighthearted than what you may have going on for you. I like taking the simple examples and then applying them over because I think that they're less charged and it's easier to see how the concept works in action with the simple stuff. And so just know and understand that I have wished it was different for definitely for the more serious and obvious reasons as well. So I am in the process of redoing some stuff in my backyard. And yesterday I went for the third time to pick up a carload of dirt. And it was like my third load. It was like 80 bags by the time it was all said and done. But I was in the parking lot of Lowe's and lo and behold, my mom called while I was loading up the bags with a couple of the Lowe's garden people, right? And my phone rings and it comes through on my car speaker. And somehow I didn't answer it because in all honesty, was going to ignore the call and call her later. She lives out of state. She lives up in the DC area. And I'm in Florida. So anyway, so I was going to just completely ignore the call. And somehow, some way, I don't know if I touched my watch or what happened there, but she all of a sudden was on my car speaker talking to me and, of course, the Lowe's garden department about her plans to come down to see me. And it took me by surprise because I knew we were talking about it. But not only was she coming down to see me, what she was explaining was that she would be leaving yesterday afternoon. And I was like, what? So I think my exact words were, what the fuck? And it's not that I don't love my mom and that I don't want to see her. Well, that can be debatable. Sometimes we have our moments, her and I. But no, truly, of course, I love her and want to see her. But when we had spoken last, I made her promise when we got off the phone that she would give me a heads up because she does like to do this, where she'll call me and let me know as she's en route down here. She's got dogs and she drives down. So it's never enough time to get my shit done is basically the long and short of it, right? And so she told me yesterday, of course, it took me by surprise. Ultimately, of course, I'm happy to see her. However, I really, really wish she would actually allot me some more time, a week, even 4 days would be great, would be fantastic. But this is not who my mom is, even after asking, right? And it is a boundary thing, but at the same time, like maybe I could be a little bit more clear with that boundary. Anyway, so yesterday I got the phone with her and I was like, all right, it's fine, I'll figure it out. But I wasn't really adding everything up, like thinking about how much I have to do before she gets here. Because when she does get here, there's not a lot of work to be had. Because if you have a mother like I do, you know that anyway, she's not going to be here for very long. It's just going to be a few days. So, I was like, all right. And then today, as I'm really starting to think about it, really actually it hit me last night. I was like talking to myself like, damn it, why didn't she tell me? Why isn't she blah, 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 blah. It was like imaginary conversation with her, right? So basically I found myself last night and today as I'm rushing around trying to get everything ready. It's not the house, it's the fact that I had to record, an episode and talk to you. And then I have to edit said episode. And then I have the membership program and my regular one-on-one clients. Like I have a job. So I'm having to sort of rearrange all of the things. Anyway, long story short is today I found myself wishing that things were different. I wish she would be this way. I wish she would do this. Why can't she blah, blah, blah? Why can't it be blah, blah, blah? That's how I found myself. I mean, I was in it too, like fully talking to myself out loud, having conversations about bitching basically about it. Like, why can't she just realize why blah, blah, blah. And I hope my mom doesn't listen to this one, but I was really frustrated and I found myself living in the, I wish, why can't she be this way? And so that's what I wanted to talk with you guys today, because I know that the idea of it, the why can't this be blah, 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 why can't things be different? Why can't whoever, the alienator, your kiddos, society, your friends, your family, be a different way. So this is something I think every human being that has even one relationship in their entire life, they experience this, right? We all experience times where we wish things or people should be different than they are. This dissatisfaction with the way the current situation is. So I wanted to address it. Of course, the closer things are to your heart and the closer things are to your suffering, the source of suffering, the more difficult it's going to feel when you're applying this mindset to, right? But it can be done. I am living and breathing proof of that. So, regardless of whether you're talking about your mom, my mom, or whether we're talking about your situation of alienation, everything that I will offer you today will apply just the same across the board. They will work if you work them, if you apply them. So, I think the most important thing to remember when we are wishing things away, I wish this was different. I wish things could be back to normal. I wish my kiddo would see through all of the stuff that the alienator's doing. I wish I didn't make that mistake back then. I wish that I would have seen things for what they were. I mean, I could come up with a million of those, right? And I know for sure that if you've been alienated from your child or you're experiencing alienation, that any one of those sentences would have applied to you at some point if it doesn't right now. Okay. The thing is that when we are wishing that things were different, we are missing the opportunities for what could be today or tomorrow. Okay. And what we end up creating from that place of wishing things were different is either nothing, like we don't get anywhere from that place, or we perpetuate the state of being. Okay. This morning, for instance, so the major problem that I was having with her coming so quickly, because she'll be here tomorrow morning, the biggest problem that I was having with that was that I didn't know how I was going to get all the things done for work. I was moving my schedule around. So I had less time on the front end, and I'd be losing 2 days of work basically in the middle of the week this week on Tuesday and Wednesday and part of Thursday, actually. So this morning I'm grumbling. I am kind of kicking things around. I'm spending time in my poopy pants thinking about all the ways that I wish she would be different, that the situation would be different. I was like, well, if she could have just called me like on Friday and let me know this, then I could have recorded the episode back on Friday. And then I wouldn't have done the things that I did this weekend, doing the yard. I would have done the things that I needed to do to prepare for her to get here so I could have the time off during the week. I was going through all these scenarios, right? The thing is that while I was spending my time doing that, grumbling and going through the alternative scenarios that were never going to happen because the time has already passed, pointless. I was spending that time doing the ruminating and not doing the things that I know I'm going to be late on. So like I'm sitting here saying how I want this things to be different, that I'm blah, blah, blah. She's going to make me late. I'm not going to get my stuff done. That was the big one. I'm not going to get my stuff done for the week. And what am I going to be doing about releasing a podcast episode? And what about my members and blah, blah, blah. I was actually creating that result for myself because the longer I stay focused on that, I will be late with my podcast episode. I will be, not paying attention to my members and all of those things, right? Does that make sense? Like I was ensuring it would happen by bitching about it. I was so focused on losing time that I was creating a reality of losing time. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So whatever we focus on, we create more of is basically what the point of that is. And we sort of ensure that is what becomes our reality, whether that's in the future, if we create that, or if we're creating that in our mind in the present. Okay. So we're creating more suffering for ourselves by focusing on the things that we don't like. I wish this would be this way. I wish they would be that way. Well, when you're wishing that kind of stuff, what you're doing is only creating the reality of more of that. And notice it in all of your life. Notice it with all of your situations. When you're wishing that things would be different, guess what we're not doing? We're not focusing on how things are different already. And we're not focusing on how we can make them different, how we can create a difference, right? So, and I'm not saying that when you're wishing things are different, like it's only from that place. You could wish that things were different and also be taking action, and then that's cool, right? But if you're only in that wishing things were different, then there might be something to look at there, some way that you can actually take back your power by stepping into the driver's seat. Does that make sense? Because usually, always actually, when we are saying, I wish things were different, notice that you are relinquishing your power. You're not looking for your choices. There's a gap there somewhere where you could take ownership and you could like create the difference for yourself. If it's someone else that you wished was different, instead create that reality for yourself. Like you're never going to change anybody else. We know this, right? I mean, not with like any staying power anyway. It's really truly not worth it because it's never really authentic when you're trying to change somebody else. But anyway, different episode. When we realize that we can't control anybody else, but we're not liking whatever it is that they are doing, then ask yourself, what about them not being a certain way is affecting you? And how can I create this for my own self? Because the second that you start getting into that curious and active place, then you find solutions and you stop feeling helpless, right? Because then you're like in an action mode of, okay, I can't help how they are. This is who they are. So I can either, if it's like a case like my mother, you can actually choose to accept and enjoy who they are for exactly who they are, or I can stay in resistance to it, right? Even when we're talking about the alienator, for instance, I can stay in resistance to how they are acting, how my daughter's father and stepmother are acting. But when I do that, I'm only creating more resistance for myself. Now, am I like in agreement with them? No, absolutely not. But I'm not going to actively resist them either. I just don't engage. So there's like a difference there. And it's all really a difference that you're making up in your brain, right? It's kind of like the difference between like I have to or I choose to. You like look for areas where where are your choices, right? I think it's also important to recognize what it is about the situation that you wish were different, what it is about it that you are opposed to, okay? And not in a purely bitching sort of way, in a grumbling sort of way, right? I mean, you're gonna grumble if there's something that you don't like, but whenever you do notice it, like I did this morning, I was like, wait a second. All right, honey, what are you making this mean? You want to recognize what it is that's a disappointment or that is not satisfactory. Truly own that for yourself. Like, go to the place of not just grumbling, but like, why am I upset about this? You know, and not in a judgmental way either. Like, what are you upset about here? What's really the problem? What is this situation of them changing visitation schedule or whatever? What's really going on here? What are you making this mean about you? You know, I like to ask those questions to myself in like a really loving and compassionate way, you know, where I'm just really getting to the heart of it, not just bitching about why I'm being wronged and it's an injustice and they're doing awful things, but like, why is it a problem for you? That question really gets to the heart of it. And then you're able to acknowledge what part of you feels injured by it. Because sometimes it'll just be very surface and it'll be an ego thing. Like you don't want anybody to take advantage of you, or you don't want anybody to think that they can take advantage of you, or you don't want anybody to think certain things about you, whatever that is, right? And then there can be an ego wasn't mine today. Mine was felt like I was being cheated out of time. And I wanted to make sure that I was able to show up for you guys like I, have committed to do every week. And I always love to do that as well. I was like, I don't want to feel rushed when I record the episode because I truly do really like the experience of knowing that I'm connecting with you guys. I've mentioned that recently as well. And so I didn't want that to be ruined. And so when I was able to like really get to what was bugging me, then I was able to soften a little bit and able to see things for what they were and like cut the shit, right? And solve for the things that really mattered as opposed to the bullshit stuff, because sometimes what our brains like to do, the lower brain it loves for you to be in the grumbling space. It loves it, which is crazy because your brain is not out to get you, but it does really like to be in that space because it's familiar And also, it's not asking it to do any backflips or anything. It's not asking it to do any heavy lifting, right? And so, as you know, as I've explained before, that the brain likes to do three things: seek pleasure, avoid pain, and be efficient, right? The efficiency there and avoiding pain, it perceives change as pain. So it makes sense why, your brain would want to stay in that familiar grumbling place, right? It'll find more and more evidence for you to back up your feeling of this isn't right. It should be different. Okay. That is a very easy one for you to not only fall into, but then stay in. Okay. Things should be different because then it's not, your brain is like, yep, let's go with that one because then we don't have to do any work to change anything. Right. So there's that. And then asking yourself how you want to show up. Is this how I want to be? Is this helpful for me to be bitching about, I wish things were different? How can I make things different? How can I grow here? Right? What is, and I know some of you guys, when you're thinking about your situation of alienation, you want to throw something right at the speaker right now because you don't want to think about your growth being forced into your growth when you feel victimized by alienation. And I get that 100% because I definitely was there. So you don't have to follow this now, but eventually it will help you thinking about, how it is that you can grow from here. Because listen, if you're in it and there's no like choice out, like if something like alienation and you've done all you can or you're doing all you can otherwise, but you still don't like it. The thing is right now, that's where we're at. You can't change it, or it's going to take some steps to change it. There's some patience involved while you're taking the steps, waiting for a court date, waiting for evaluations and all that stuff, but you're in it right now. And so since you can't change it, you might as well make something of it. Because if you're just grumbling, it's only going to make it that much worse. But if you could bring something out of it, like it's like something to show for it, then that's amazing, right? And so that's why I think this kind of mindset helps. So how can you grow from this? What could be helpful from this? Any kind of questions like that. I responded on a post that was made on one of the forums today. And I said, the most helpful thing for me to think about, because the person was asking specific questions, won't go into the details, but what part of my response was, in a loving way, of course, was like the higher quality the question that you pose, the higher quality of an answer that you're going to get back. So when you're asking questions that are negatively charged, you're going to get very black, white, yes, no, low quality, negative responses from your brain. The higher quality questions that you pose, the open-ended possibilities, like solution focused sort of questions. How can I show up here? How can I learn? What can I add? How could I change it since things are this way? How could I make my experience different? These kinds of questions are thought provoking. They provoke curiosity. A different part of your brain is engaged and you're able to start wondering about what are the possibilities? What are you willing to do? All of those things. So the higher quality questions that you pose for yourself, the better answers you're going to get. So I think that is the most helpful way to move you from wanting things to be different. Okay. And you guys have heard me say before, Byron, Katie, when you're arguing with reality, you lose every time. Because if it's already happened, we cannot change it. So how is grumbling about it or wishing that things were a different way? Or like me this morning where I was like, if she just would have said this, then I would have done things completely different. And then everything would be different today. Actually, yeah, now that I'm saying it like this, just my ego absolutely was involved. Right? Because I was saying, oh, then I would have done this way and I would have made things right. I didn't even think about that. Yeah. And then of course I would have done it this way and then everything would be fine. But because she didn't, I wasn't able to do anything about it. Complete victim mentality, actually. But when I'm now like, okay, things are the way they are. What can I do? How can I make this better? Well, you know what? I can record my episode on Monday instead of waiting until Wednesday when I have to put it out on Wednesday night or Thursday morning anyway. I mean, so it's just things like that. Just really getting honest and real with yourself. Ask yourself, what about the situation is really, really troubling you? What don't you like? And acknowledging that. Because if you can't change it, if it's a situation not like mine today, and it is about your alienation, and you can't change it at this moment, you're working on it, but you can't, then at least acknowledge your sadness about it and why it affects you, why you feel disappointed or whatever. Know those reasons, right? Really, truly know them. And then ask the high quality questions. Things can't be different, but how can I make my experience different? How can I learn from this so that I don't repeat my side of things again? How can I help others with it? There are plenty of different questions you can ask where you will find the kind of answers that will empower you. Yeah. As opposed to how can things be different now, with that tone, or like, well, what am I supposed to do now? You're not going to get very good answers that way. Right. So anyway, yeah, that is it. So I hope that this helped somebody out there today. I am going to go finish getting ready for my mom to come in. And I will talk with you guys next week. Oh, and also, if you guys haven't already, please rate and review. I would be so appreciative. As you know, I love it for me, but also truly, truly, I want more parents. There's so many parents out there like us. It seems like, I don't know if it's social media, so we're seeing more of it, or if more people are speaking out about it, which is also good, or if it's happening more, I'm not sure what it is, but there are so many more parents out there that are feeling alone right now, are feeling isolated and afraid, and all of the feelings, them. So I want them to find a source of relief. And I know that you do too. So the more you rate and review, the more visibility we get. So that is that. And listen, you guys, I just had a couple more people sign up today. Also, the Healing Reinvention Program is still open. Okay. This whole month of March is the last month that you can get in at 97. That is all I have. Okay.